Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar on learning 25 Business Central tips in 45 minutes, presented by Nirav Shah. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. Everybody has been muted upon entering. Please use the Q&A section throughout the webinar to submit your questions. We will address them at the end of the session. And finally, this session is being recorded and will be shared with you in 24 hours, and it will be posted also on our YouTube channel. Hello again. Oh, sorry. Hello again. I am glad you took some time out for your busy day today to join our session. My name is Avani Shah, and I lead the marketing and digital experience strategies at Sears ERP. Ensuring that every touch point from brand to user experience reflects our clarity, value, and the trust. I connect people's technology and messaging to drive engagement, support ERP adoption, and elevate the overall customer journey. I focus both on our Acumatica and Business Central side of our company. Our presenter today, Nirav Shah, is the president of Sears ERP, who has 20 plus years of ERP implementation, project management, and business process improvement. He has the privilege of helping businesses streamline operations and modernize systems with platforms like Microsoft's Business Central and Acumatica. He's also the co-host of the podcast called ABCs of ERP and Beyond. Today's agenda will be to discuss navigations and user experience, data and system insights, financial and GL controls, inventory and manufacturing optimization, and purchasing and sales efficiency in Business Central. Nirav, I'm going to let you take away so we can get to the main event.
Thank you, Vani. Appreciate it. Welcome, everybody, to our webinar today on the 25 tips of Business Central. So as my screen gets loaded here, I'm going to be coming on and showing you, quick ways to optimize your Business Central environment. In front of us, you should be seeing Dynamics Business Central. This is version 25.5. The new version that's out right now in preview is 26, but we're going to be doing this in 25.5 at the moment. So I've come up with 25 tips that I feel like sometimes, doesn't get spoken about enough during an implementation, or once you do get installed, you kind of just are doing the regular day in and day out transactions inside your Business Central environment, and you don't kind of venture out to look at other ways that the system could help make your day a little bit more efficient. So some of these tips that I'll go through today may sound very basic, which that's intended to help someone that's maybe going through an implementation right now to understand a little bit more about the investment inside Business Central that they've made. And some are going to be a little bit more advanced, like if you're using manufacturing, you're using a production module inside Business Central, right? Just some tidbits on how to kind of navigate around and do things a little bit more efficiently. We're not going to take a deep dive in all the specific user tips. I'm going to start showing the tips here inside Business Central, but if there's any questions or anything like that that you have as I'm going through the presentation, please let me know, and we could address it in the Q&A session or even after our webinar today. So I'm going to start with that first topic in mind here in our agenda, which is navigation user experience. The first tip that I have to share is changing environments with ease. So what that is within the Business Central client, and you're logged into the Role Center here. On the top right, we have your environment. And when you open that up, you'll see which environments and companies you have access to. So if you're intercompany type of organization, you bounce around different companies, or you need to do some testing in a sandbox, and then you have to go to a production after your testing is done. Well, it's really easy to do that by just quickly selecting the environment option right here on the ribbon of the Role Center, and you could see your different databases and the companies within those databases. And as you select a different company, it will immediately log you into that company that you have access to. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, which I think is pretty popular in the BC community, is bookmarking your pages. So you'll notice here on our Role Center and our home screen, maybe I need to access my item or my item master often, but instead of me having to navigate maybe through our menus and get to that type of function, right? I'm just going to go back here and I'm going to use my tell me search option that I have on the ribbon. I'm going to search items. Now, once I get to my items option here under list, I'm going to select this bookmark. And what that'll do is bookmark it, kind of very similar to like a browser that you would bookmark, a web page in a browser that you would bookmark. And you'll notice right here, right underneath my company name, which is Business Central Headquarters, I have bookmarked my items list. You could do this with reports. You could do this with list views. You could do this with cards, right? You could do it with other, different areas that you access, Business Central to make your day-to-day a little bit more effective. The third tip I want to show is creating a saved view. What that is the ability to go ahead and take these list views that we see here inside Business Central and create pre-filtered views of specific data that you have to kind of keep track of on a day-to-day basis, right? An example that I have here are orders over $10,000. Now, this type of view is not delivered with Business Central out of the box. So what we could do is create our own view by basically selecting the filters option here that opens up the filter pane on the left. And then by selecting the different fields within this table that we want to filter on, we could put in our criteria. Once we put in our criteria, we could then save the filter. So let's say I want to go ahead and create a new criteria of orders over 25,000. So I'm just going to go ahead and backspace out the 10,000. And now I'm going to look at only orders over 25,000. And then I'm going to go ahead and save this view. And I'm going to call it, let me come back in here. Let's go to all. I'm going to go and create my view here. So list, and I'm going to say amount, find my amount, and I'm going to say greater than 25,000. And now we have our orders. I'm going to go ahead and save this view. I'm going to say orders greater than 25K, hit enter, and that view now gets saved on my left-hand navigation pane as I go into this particular screen here inside Business Central. So I could access my different views that I need to: orders over 10,000, orders over 25,000. I could look at my ship not invoiced, my ready to ship orders. So it kind of gets me really in the mindset of being very proactive and completing the work that I need to complete based on different criteria that I need to keep track of inside Business Central. The next tip number 4, is adjusting your time zone. Now, this is really important. This kind of gets a little bit overlooked during the implementation, but I like to generally mention this because users, especially nowadays since post-COVID, they're all in different time zones. So when you do transactions in the system, you want to make sure it reflects your time zone that you are doing the transaction, maybe not the transaction that the time zone that the headquarter company is in, right? So, if this applies to you, time zone setting is important. You should set this to the correct time zone so that the date and time that the transaction gets stamped according to that user's location. Okay. And you'll notice really anywhere in the world, you could go ahead and select wherever your user is to register that date and time. Okay. Now, another one I like to share here, which is tip number 5, is we call Control Alt F1. It's basically to inspect pages. So oftentimes when you're working with your partner or you want to see data that's not really visible in your screen, right? You want to see what the data is looking like in the table. You could use this Control Alt F1 option to get what I call a detailed or zoom look into the table. If I go into my sales orders and I go into, let's say I take a sales order here, School of Fine Arts, and I want to know the system created date of this order. Now you'll notice it's not really available for me right here on the sales order page, but if I just go ahead and hit my Control Alt F1, I'm going to go ahead and get what I call page inspection turned on. And it's going to tell me all the table fields in my sales header table here because I activated the page inspect from my header. And if I wanted to go down, I could see on the right side all the different fields and tables that and the values inside those fields that the system has basically collected. And I'm going to go ahead and select, let's say, system, and I'm just going to go ahead and type in the date here. So I could say here system, anything that starts with system as a field name. I want to see what the specific date and time is and who did it. I could see here that I did it at a specific date and time, right? And this is really important because it kind of gives you a better audit trail inside Business Central. Okay, I'm going to close out of here. So page inspection is important. Tip number 6 is sending records via Teams seamlessly. If I wanted to send this sales order to a specific user that has Teams, and let's say your company uses Teams as a collaboration tool daily, you could send links directly from Business Central to Teams. So there's this option called Share on almost every page within Business Central. I could select Share to Teams, and this will open up a Teams client for me, essentially transparently logging me into Teams and also identifying, who I could search whoever I want in my company directory. I could tell them, here's a specific record that I want them to see. I could hit share, and then that will go and share this link to the user. And going to the Teams board will show that particular message. So if I just show you my Teams here, come back, show you Teams. We'll see here. I'm just going to bring over my Teams client here. You'll see here real quickly, it shows us the Teams link of where I was from today. Okay, move that back there. Okay, and the last one in this particular section and navigation user experience is finding your Business Central version. A lot of times, company users are working inside Business Central and don't know what version of Business Central they're on. Microsoft, as you know, has 2 major releases per year. One is in April and the second one is in October. So it's important to know which release you're working on. You can always go into your help option up here. Okay, the question mark on the top right, and then go to help and support under other resources and see what version of Business Central you're working on. So then that way you know which specific functionality, which features are available to you based on the version that you're in. Now we're going to move into the second agenda, which is data and system insights. And the first tip there that I want to share is what we call search company data to open tables. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this order that we've been kind of looking at, 101013. I'm going to select my tell me option, and I'm going to put in that order number 101031, and I'm going to select search company data. So here, searching company data will bring up what I call like the global search, right? It's going to go and find anywhere that you're telling the system which tables to search for this particular value, 101031, and it's brought up only customer ledger entries, general ledger entries, and posted sales invoices. Okay, but we know that we also have a sales order here, and I think something that gets missed oftentimes is that you can expand this search outside of just the initial setup that Microsoft delivers this particular functionality at. You can select setup where to search, and now once you do that, you go ahead and remove this checkbox that says show only search enable lists, and you'll now then see all of the specific sales orders, all of the tables available to you. And if you scroll down, you could even search if you like. So I could just scroll down here and keep coming down. Gives a moment. It's kind of going through all the table sets here. And I'm going to search for sales order. Sales order search come in. And then once I select or enable the search for sales orders, we'll see the ability to query any sales order within the sales order table once we get into the search option here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit search sales order header. We'll hit close. And if I just go ahead and hit start search again, now you'll notice I got sales order lines and sales orders that came up here. So I could expand this search that I do within the company data through any table, essentially, that I want to make sure I'm able to search for data to easily access that information without having to hunt and peck for that piece of data. Tip number 9 is the ability to see related documents from the line level. Now, this is really important when you do like return orders, sales return orders, or shipment orders. But if I go to, let's say, if I go to posted sales shipment, and let's say you're a type of company that essentially you go ahead and you ship out multiple sales orders on a single shipment, right? If you do that and then you want to know from each shipment or which sales orders went out with that shipment, under the shipment lines, you could go to document line tracking, and it will show you all the different sales orders that you have that you shipped out of for that particular shipment. Really helpful feature. I think this one kind of gets a little bit overlooked. It's really good for your customer service experience when a customer's calling in and saying, hey, this order that we received in, how many shipments, how many sales orders, was included in this shipment. Well, you could really quickly look at, once you get the packing slip number, look at which sales orders were included in that shipment. So I really like this feature as well. And now not only is it included in the posted sales shipments, but really if you go to posted returns, go to posted return receipts, and here I have one in my example, but I could look at, go under lines, I could go to, not credit memo, but I could go to document line tracking, and it'll tell me my sales credit memo and my posted receipt lines. And then if this is also associated to a sales order, it will show me the sales order and or show me the invoice. Okay. Tip number 10 for us here is copy older orders to create new ones. This is kind of common, but I like to show this as well because it happens all the time, right? You get a repeat order from a customer that they bought from you, last year, and you don't want to enter this order in, but you know the invoice that you invoiced them on, so you just want to copy the invoice detail. Well, once you come into the sales order, you don't have to put any other information except go into prepare, select copy document. Now select the posted invoice. So you can go and search for the posted invoice here or whatnot. Let's say I select this invoice from 2021. I hit OK, and then I'm going to include the header. I'm going to recalculate the lines in case the pricing has changed since that 2021 year. Hit OK, and it's going to go through and basically create that sales order for me with the details of that invoice we completed way back in 2021. So I could just finely tune this now, tweak it if I like to, but this is a really nice helpful feature called copy document that you could use not only on the sales order side, but also purchase order side, returns, sales invoice side, purchase invoice side, a lot of different places that you want to take advantage of copying older documents to the newer records that you're creating. The last one under data and system insights is, a unique license that Business Central offers. It's called an accounting license. So if you're a smaller company and you use an outside bookkeeper, you want them to have access to your general ledger, so they could run their P&L or run your balance sheet and file your taxes for you or whatnot, you could invite an external accountant. And inviting an external accountant is actually a free license that Microsoft offers to their customers, so they could extend a free BC license to their accountants at the end of the day. And this is free. It doesn't cost you any more money. So this would be something that you definitely want to take advantage of if you have that situation where you're using an outside accountant that is working on your financials. So when that happens, you could create a user would be created, and then they would be assigned an accounting license, essentially. Okay. Now, so that was the last one here under data and system insights. We're going to move into our third agenda here, which is financial and GL controls. The first one I'd like to show here is post reversals directly from the general ledger entries. Oftentimes you have, your team has created journal entries in the system and realized at month end, oh, this is the wrong entry. I need to reverse it. Well, how do we do that in BC? Right? Really simple, really easy. I just go and search for the journal entry. Let's say it's this journal entry, document number 12, for 5/18 that happened. I could select one of the two lines, either the credit line or the debit line. It doesn't really matter. And then I could select reverse transaction. Once I select reverse transaction, it kind of isolates the transaction that was created for that transaction ID. I can select reverse. Do you want to reverse this transaction? I'll say yes. And then this will go ahead and successfully reverse the transactions for me. And you notice it keeps that same document number, but shows both the original entries and the reversing entries. Okay. So reversal is kind of an important point here. I think companies could use this more often than not, so they don't have to create a reversing journal entry manually. They just leverage this automated function that's called reverse transactions inside the general ledger entries page. Tip number 13, we're moving right along here. Tip number 13 is set up default GL accounts for vendors. If you're a customer that came off of QuickBooks, QuickBooks has this function where you could associate a default GL account, right, for your vendors. So when you create a purchase order or you create an invoice for that vendor, it defaults that GL account in. So your team doesn't have to worry about what GL account they need to select when they're putting in their invoices for vendors or purchase orders or whatnot. So this could be easily handled, what I call under vendors. We'll navigate to the vendor list. And we'll use Graphic Design Institute as an example. Under Graphic Design Institute, let's say we do a lot of advertising expenses with them. I could go ahead and select, go to related purchases, and I'll create what's called recurring purchase lines. Okay, so recurring purchase lines, I'm going to go and select this. I could tell the system now which purchase lines do I want to associate to this particular vendor, right? So I create a unique code for recurring purchase lines, and the code I've created is advertising. And within this code, you'll see that this advertising code has a GL line associated to it under the line section called advertising expense with a quantity of 1. So now we've associated the GL account to our purchase standard code of advertising to this particular vendor. Along with that, we've told the system when we create a purchase invoice, there is a column here called Insert Recurring Lines on Invoices, and we said automatically. What this would do is as soon as I select that vendor on a new purchase invoice, it's going to insert that GL line directly into the purchase invoice for me to just basically add an amount. Let's see this in action. I'm going to go select purchase invoices, go to purchase invoices here. I'm going to create a new purchase invoice. I'm going to go and select my vendor, graphic design, and you'll notice as soon as I selected my vendor graphic design, the system immediately added my vendor GL account in here without me having to manually add it in. Really nice feature, especially if you're coming off of QuickBooks. We get customers all the time that ask for this feature, and it's already out of the box inside Business Central. We'll exit out of this screen, continue on here. Number 14 is to make dimensions mandatory on general ledger on your GL entries or any type of GL account. So this is a straightforward one. Dimensions are tags that you can associate to your financials. So if I go to my chart of accounts, I could come in here and I could see in my chart of accounts, coming in here, let's go in my, I don't want to go in my entry here. I'll go to my chart of accounts 10,300. And under account itself, I could see dimensions. So I'll go into my account option on top, go to dimensions, and then under dimensions, I could go ahead and then select, once I get into my dimensions area, give it a quick moment here, tell the system, well, what dimension code do I want to make mandatory? Let's say I want department to post in here, and I want to make this mandatory. So meaning that anyone that posts to this account has to select a dimension code. Otherwise, the user will get an error message when trying to post to that GL account. Okay. That's an important one. The next one I want to show, still in our financials area, which is tip number 15, is direct posting flag on the GL account card. Now, what this does is gives the user the ability to do journal entries to this particular GL account. Oftentimes, there might be some GL accounts that you don't want to have users create manual journal entries for. Which accounts are those, you may ask? It could be inventory accounts, GL accounts, receivable accounts, payable accounts. You want to keep those in balance with the subledger inside Business Central. So you may want to decide to turn off direct posting for those type of accounts. Okay, so the system will not allow anyone to do a manual journal entry to them, right? Or maybe give access only to certain individuals in the company that could do a GL account or a journal entry to those accounts, right? Because those are really important auditing accounts. So you could then tie your subledger to your balance sheet or income statement at the end of the day. So direct posting is an important flag when you set up your chart of accounts. It's basically driving whether you could do a manual journal entry to that GL account or not. Okay. The last one in this section, tip number 16, we have here is adding tolerances to role center analytics. I really like this one because once you get used to the analytics or how to use your role center, you can start color coordinating things that are within or out of tolerance for you. So right now, I'm just going to take this example, overdue purchase documents here on my role center. I have 13 here, and we see here that that's kind of like in yellow. It's what we call ambiguous, or kind of it's like you're in caution mode. You're starting to creep up to having too many open purchase documents. So I'm just going to go ahead and look at my queues here under activity and just make a change here. So I'm going to find that queue, overdue purchase documents, and I'm going to say here, actually, I'm going to change this. So I'm going to say anything under 5 is going to be favorable under our low range. And we'll say anything 10 and under will be ambiguous, and everything over 10 will be unfavorable. Okay, so since we have 13, we should now see an unfavorable result. So I'm going to close here, and now you notice the color has changed. Is changed to red now, meaning that that is essentially in an unfavorable territory for us. So as I visually look at my role center, I could quickly see which things I need to start working on right away to bring that back down within tolerance. Okay. So that's what we call adding tolerances to our role center, different queues that we have already set up or Microsoft delivered out of the box. You could define your own tolerances, your tolerance ranges. Moving on here, number 17, we're going to move into now the inventory and manufacturing optimization section. Okay, now this kind of may be getting a little bit more advanced. You may be using manufacturing, may not be using manufacturing, or you're thinking about using manufacturing. A really good idea to start looking at, how to use manufacturing efficiently. The first thing I want to share is I want to go to inventory setup. And I know QuickBooks, allows you to, have negative inventory as an option. Well, so does Dynamics Business Central. It's not preferred that inventory goes negative for anybody for any reason, right? It's kind of an accounting no-no. Accountants don't really like that. But you have a flag in a global setting here called prevent negative inventory. If you turn this on and activate it across the board, all your items will have this flag set as prevent negative inventory. Now, you do have the option on an item by item basis to change that, where if you say, on a specific item, I do want to have negative inventory. It could be like MRO items, screws, nuts and bolts, things of low value, high volume, type of things like that. Then you could decide whether you want to have, negative inventory or whatnot. But there's a global setting here called prevent negative inventory that you can use that would apply to all your items. Okay. I want to move into now a little bit more on the role center on my next two tips. Tip number 18 is going to look at using our warehouse worker role center. So I'm going to change my role center to warehouse worker. And what this will do for us is now, if I'm a warehouse worker, see information that's more pertinent to my job responsibility. And I think oftentimes once you've been implemented or you're in the process of implementing, you really don't take the role centers very seriously, or you kind of are set it and forget it, and you don't kind of go back to it. But this might be a good time to look at the other role centers that Microsoft has delivered to you out of the box, so you can determine, you could do less navigating through the system and have that information kind of bubble up to the surface surface for you by leveraging and using the out-of-the-box role centers for us. So here we can see we have Business Central headquarters, and now a lot of the activities or queues that we see are oriented around a warehouse worker or the type of picks that they would need to process and move inventory around. Along with that, you'll see under action a lot more like functions related around inquiries and processing transactions with your specific inventory warehouse worker in mind. Okay. The number 19 I want to share here and show is our inventory manager role center. So I'm going to go into inventory manager. I'm going to just change our role center to my settings and come down here and look at inventory manager, select inventory manager. And what you'll see is a whole different set of queues that's related to our inventory manager now. And here you'll see release sales orders, release purchase orders, things I need to ship today, picks I need to post today. You may see some overlapping queues here between the warehouse worker and the inventory manager, but it's designed that way because you could have that one person wearing two hats. But it's really nice that that person, that job responsibility gets their own view, so they stay very productive and could manage and look at how far and what else they have left to complete on the day-to-day work that they're doing. Now moving on here, we're moving to tip number 20. Actually, we're getting down to the end, is our production BOM metrics. So I'm going to navigate to production BOM, and under production BOMs here, we'll see our bill of materials that we have loaded in my environment. And I'll go into our Titleist golf ball example here. And in our Titleist golf ball example, we see we have a standard bill of material. But we also know, what I also know, is I have multiple versions of this Titleist golf ball. I have a Pro V1, a Pro V1X. So if any of those individuals out there are golfers, they probably understand these different ball types with Titleist. But each ball has a little unique bill of materials. So what happens? How do I look at these different versions of these bill of materials in a single shot? Well, I could really quickly look at this by looking at my matrix per version view here and show my matrix, and then I could see here my differences. So between my versions, my Pro V1 and Pro V1X, I could quickly compare my bill of material and my quantities and see the rubber material used between my Pro V1 and Pro V1X. I have a little extra material used in Pro V1X here. So I could quickly compare and look at that information and try to discern, okay, which bill of material do I want to use for a specific operation run. Okay. Let's close out of here. The next tip I want to show here, and tip number 21, is include setup costs in our BOM rollup. So that's, believe it or not, that's actually an individual flag inside the inventory setup table. So if I go to inventory setup, the flag here is located. See here, it's going to be here, cost adjustment, inventory cost adjustment. And actually, let's pull down and personalize. We should see that one up here. And let's see the personalization, which is another one here that we do also want to make sure that our audience members know of, is how to do this personalization and personalize your screen, is the ability to hit the gear icon, select personalize, and that'll allow you to go ahead and add and remove any field on the page that you like. It's not a customization, it's a personalization. So you could then say, if I want to allow inventory adjustment over to above negative inventory, I could do that, and the system will go ahead and move that over, which is really nice. Okay. Moving on to tip 22, audit cost adjustments over time from an item. This is really important for, let's say, when you have items that essentially our average cost, and you want to know, well, how did we get to this average cost over a period of time for a specific item, right? Was there a unique economic situation that happened, especially right now, right? Tariffs are really high, or during COVID, supply chain was a little tied up here. So, costs were was definitely higher than what you would normally get inventory for. But if you want to see an audit trail of that, you could go into your item master, and inside the item master, you would select the unit cost option here. And in the unit cost, you see an audit of everything that you're buying of this item and the transaction type, the quantity that you purchase it for, and the cost you purchased it for. That will then basically be the weighted average for the item that we see here and what the unit cost is right here. So I think oftentimes this doesn't get shown early on in the implementation or talked about, but this is a nice one because it gives you an audit trail of how your costs are coming and being calculated at the end of the day. So you want to know, what is the origin of the cost that you're seeing on the screen when you're looking at your item master. Now, our last and final section here is purchasing and sales efficiency. We have 3 tips here that I like to show. The first tip, number 23, is auto create purchase orders from sales orders. This is one that we get asked all the time. I'm going to go select our tell me option. I'm going to go to purchase order and go to our purchase order screen here. And I'll just take any old purchase order here and select the purchase order. And let's say I come down here to the bottom, we have an item here. I'm going to go ahead and select action, functions, create purchase order, or create purchase document and create purchase order. This will do a direct one-to-one link and create a purchase order for this item over here. So it looks like that item is already on a purchase order. And we don't need to put it, I need to put a quantity in here. I'm going to put a quantity of 10 for this particular item. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my functions, create purchase order, create purchase document lines, create purchase order, and it looks like it's all still available. So it won't let me create it at the moment. Let me go back one here screen. I had an example. I'm going to go back to this order here, this 101045 order. We'll try that function one more time. Let the lines load up here. Got the lines loaded up here. We'll go to actions, functions, create documents, purchase documents, create purchase orders. And there are no lines to create. So we have nothing to create here, which is good. It's telling us that we have inventory available, but this is a really handy function for us to go ahead and create our purchase documents pretty quickly directly from our sales order. Tip number 24 is to auto create our related vendor return documents. And what do I mean by that? Is the ability when you do a sales return, and I'll show you what I'm talking about here. When I do a sales return order inside Business Central, and I create a new sales return order, meaning I'm doing an RMA from a customer back into Business Central, I could create my sales related documents up here on the ribbon. And what that is the ability to automatically create our related vendor documents to the vendor. So I could say, I'm going to go ahead and create a purchase return directly to the vendor. If you're a distributor, this is a really handy feature. A return directly to my vendor because I received the customer received a default product, right? Or a damaged product at the end of the day. So you could directly create your return document to your vendor, create an updated purchase order so you could re-receive in maybe the goods from your vendor. So you could then sell those goods back on a sales order. So you could create your purchase return order, create your purchase order, and the sales order for the return order if you are reselling or sending those new goods back to the vendor because of the return that you're doing. Okay, so create return related documents is really a great feature to streamline your return process, especially if you're a distributor. Now, the last and final tip for today I want to share is the planning worksheet. Going back to our item master, if you're ever looking to activate the planning worksheet, which is the MRP and MPS engine, here, what I want to make sure you know is in order for you to use any of the planning screens or processes, the reorder policy needs to be set. here. It cannot be blank. If it is blank, the system will ignore this item from being planned out. You need to have at least you need to have a value here in the reorder policy in order for the system to plan supply and demand for the item using MRP and MPS. So blank will not allow the item to be planned versus any of these other ones. We have fixed reorder quantity, maximum quantity, order, and lot for lot. We'll plan the item sufficiently using the materials requirement planning or master production scheduling, whichever one you choose to run, which is in the planning worksheet or the requisition worksheet inside Business Central as well. So this is important. A lot of customers get tripped up with this because they're trying to plan, use Business Central to plan their supply and demand and can't get any results. Well, you know, most likely, if you can't get results, first I'll check here to make sure, do we have a reorder policy set for our items? Okay. So that is the last tip for today. Really want to quickly go through what we call a power lunch, showing you 25 really important tips from my perspective in using and streamlining Business Central. We'll do many of these different webinars on a periodic basis to continue to help you gain the most out of your investment inside Business Central. So thank you.
Thank you, Nirav, for giving us the valuable tips in Business Central. We have a few more minutes, so if anybody has any questions, please submit your questions now in the Q&A section if you haven't done so. And if there are no questions, then I'd like to thank you once again for joining our session today. I hope you found it informative and session. As always, you can email us if you have any questions. Please check our social media for a platform for any updates and news. And also, if you would like, you can subscribe to Nirav's podcast of ABCs of ERP and Beyond. And like I had mentioned, we will send this webinar to you in the next 24 hours, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel. Thanks again, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.